Classical mythology dictates that monsters are primal agents of chaos. They exist in the historical record as obstacles, creatures that must be subjugated by a hero to restore order to the world. The novel Rescue at Pelagon's Retreat strips away these labels. It takes the terrifying silhouettes of ancient myth and places them inside domestic, creative realities. The Cyclops is no longer a force of primal destruction, but a grounded, peaceful entity whose primary concern is the safety of his home. Even Pegasus is reframed. Instead of a distant divine icon, he functions as a pragmatic courier and a businessman navigating the chaos of a shifting world. These shifts suggest a specific perspective, that the legends we inherited were actually written by the kings who stood to gain the most from them. Analyzing this narrative requires looking past moral absolutes. It asks us to see historical records not as truth, but as an exercise in royal vanity and public relations. To understand how this works, we will first examine the actual psychological traits and domestic goals of these so-called monsters. We will then contrast those humble goals against the hubris of King Minos and his top-down autocracy. Finally, we'll map how these marginalized characters manipulate the divine bureaucracy to survive an unwinnable war. The story demonstrates that ultimate victory comes through logistical competence, showing that power is a matter of clear-headed planning rather than divine right. Medusa is introduced as an artisan, an emotionally guarded craftswoman who becomes a protective mentor to a blind flower seller named Alara. Her focus isn't on the destruction of heroes, but on the preservation of her art and the safety of her found family. Wally the Minotaur follows a similar pattern. He is a theatrical perfectionist, an actor playing a role rather than a mindless beast trapped in a maze. He views his environment strictly as a stage, treating the maze as a set for his ongoing performance. Wally, the Minotaur, is completely obsessed with spatial precision. He ignores the king's court to measure the corners of his labyrinth, frustrated that a specific angle is 88 degrees instead of a perfect 90. This matrix shows how the text separates physical appearance from motivation. While they score high on mythic expectation, the narrative places them entirely in the category of rational creators. In this story, monstrosity is just a physical costume. Beneath it are meticulous characters who value domestic stability over mythic conflict. This contrast is sharpest when King Minos targets Pelagon's Retreat, a peaceful settlement of 800 refugees with a fleet of 32 warships. Minos operates a top-down autocracy driven by his legacy. To him, the conquest is only as valuable as the history books that record it. His military priorities are purely performative. He demands that poets, senators in formal robes, and high priestesses board his flagship to witness and document his triumph. But while King Minos focuses entirely on the optics of his victory, the ensemble at the retreat focuses instead on strict logistical pragmatism. They don't prepare for the attack by forging swords. Instead, they organize barricades, secure water wells, and move food stores away from the harbor. True leadership here is presented as a logistical problem to be solved, while tyranny is revealed as nothing more than aesthetic posturing. The gods in this world aren't absolute moral judges. They are self-interested, manipulable systems. This flowchart tracks how Wally uses his theatrical training to navigate a high-stakes poker game, successfully bluffing Zeus into folding his hand. By treating the encounter as a performance, the characters subvert the trope of mortals physically fighting gods. They rely on psychology rather than strength. This approach continues when they petition Poseidon. They find the sea god indifferent, resting in the opulence of his summer residence. The request they make is massive in scale, requiring the total use of Poseidon's power. Medusa and Wally successfully negotiate for Poseidon to physically relocate the entire city, moving it completely out of the path of the king's fleet. These marginalized figures survive not by overpowering the divine, but by hacking the system through negotiation and empathy. King Minos arrives at the retreat's coordinates, his flagship crowded with poets ready to turn his conquest into a legend. Suddenly, without any warning, a massive wave engineered by Poseidon rises from the calm sea, completely consuming the entire horizon. The wave doesn't destroy the fleet, it simply removes the target. Minos is left staring at an empty, undisturbed ocean. The ensemble is already safe in a new harbor, physically transported away from the king's violence. This final conflict results in 0 casualties. It proves that logistical evasion is a more effective victory than martial conquest. Minos is left with a profound problem. He has brought an entire audience to witness a battle that never happened. Unable to admit to a logistical defeat, he immediately blames outlaw wizards. He invents a conspiracy to protect his ego in front of his senate. He issues a decree to confiscate crystals and wands, creating a fictional narrative to explain away his military failure. Behind him, a poet quietly takes notes, capturing the exact moment a myth is born from royal embarrassment. The novel demonstrates that our records of monsters are often fictions, authored by the powerful to hide the competence and humanity of those they sought to destroy.